Alright guys, are you ready to get another video bombed of dislikes, except YouTube removed the dislike button so you can't dislike the video? But the impression that I got from this video is Linus is tired and frustrated because he went about doing all of this the wrong way. At least that's my perception. He sounded very tired, very frustrated, very exhausted. Compared to Luke, who was spitting facts and legitimately who reported legitimate problems, and Linus is not reporting problems that people is reporting problems people. He's reporting problems to the wrong audience that people can't fix. Let's put it: people that he wants to fix won't be able to fix.
So, from my perspective, if we're being honest here, I am definitely closer to the Linus end of the spectrum than you are in terms of how we treat technology. When it comes to like corporate stuff, I'm okay with some of the corporate stuff. You know, I'm okay with like telemetry to a degree, which you absolutely are not. I'm okay with stuff. I mean, like I'm using an Apple computer. You wouldn't be caught dead with one for the most part. I think for Linus, he's used to Windows and he's willing to the stuff that you don't like about Windows, he either doesn't care about or is willing to compromise on. Windows ends up being kind of his default language that he understands.
No.
And a lot of the stuff that
Can I be clear about what I just said? 90% of what Linus said is not a Linux problem. 90% of it, and I mean that. 90% of what he said in this one video is not related to Linux.
You mean it's related to, like, GUI interface kind of stuff? No,
it's related to, he made a complaint, I can't download a file from GitHub. And it's like, that's not a Linux problem. That's a GitHub problem.
I think they ended up talking about that. I think it was in the WAN show that they mentioned it. And they said they did mention that, okay, yeah, GitHub isn't Linux, but there are some programs that you literally have to go to GitHub for.
Well, you should blame the creator of those programs, not Linux.
Yeah,
it's not Linux's problem.
But this is something
I'm not saying those developers aren't boneheaded. I'm pretty sure most of them are. I'm sorry, developers, but some of you are pretty boneheaded.
And again, this isn't the definitive view. This isn't the definitive view of Linux, and they want it. They don't want it to be the definitive view of Linux. They want to be.
But do you know who had a legitimate definitive view of Linux? It was Luke. He had the more legitimate view. Linus's was him complaining about stuff that was completely unrelated.
So you might say that, but like, look at how many problems Luke had running his operating system, and he used to run Linux Mint as his main operating system for 2 years. So from the perspective of trying to convince a Microsoft user or an Apple user to switch over to Linux and saying, oh well, it isn't different at all, like it's just it's just a different interface. But then the answer is, at least for the Linus Tech Tips audience, is Linux is not your answer. Like, because honestly,
but they're just sheep. I mean, they're very passionate.
Which is an opinion, but from Linus's perspective, he is making a video not for humanity, not for the 8 billion people on the planet that could potentially encounter technology. He's making it for the roughly 10 million people that are subscribed. He's making it for the Linus Tech Tips community. And by and large, the Linus Tech Tips community are gamers. And so from a gamer's perspective, Linux
is this
not
audience
there
really
yet.
Mostly gamers, though?
Oh yeah. I would say their videos if
don't give me that feel.
If I'm being generous, I would say 70% of the people watching are like PC gamers of some variety. I would guess higher though. I would guess closer to like 90%. Like for example, I would qualify as a PC gamer. I don't do exclusively PC gaming. like a game R in the sense that I like play all the all those you know mainstream shooter games or whatever, but I do game on PC, and I think most of his audience does as well. And so for those people, I can see how it would be a problem. When there's a small section of the Linus community that's like, oh well, you could fix all your problems by switching to Linux. That's really who he's addressing.
They're morons, but that's okay. That's a story for another time. To be fair, even if you don't think you sound like you're saying that most of the time, you sound like that most of the time. You say you could solve all of your problems by switching. A lot of times, people. I'm just saying, people need to be intelligent. If you can't determine that for yourself, then why are you consulting me? Because you need to know what you want. If you don't know what you want, at least they're going into this knowing what they want. Linus in particular just went about it the completely wrong ways and is not being intelligent about this at all.
Well, I mean,
compared to Luke, who yeah, he had a lot of problems, but that's the hard truth.
I mean, Luke admitted that for his main gaming PC, he's going to keep that as a Windows computer now that they're done with the challenge. But for his laptop, he's actually going to keep, he said, at least on the WAN show,
all the things that I would need to do for work, honestly, at this point in time, Linux is getting in my way less than Windows. That was my argument in the past. Now, Windows is losing, so I should be using Linux on my work computer. So I am.
But I think that for the Linux community, I think that's for those people that are real Linux fanboys, I would say that's at least a consolation prize. Like, I think what the real Linux fanboys want, like what the real Linux fanboys wanted from this video, and I think though you don't know that you would want it, what you really want is for people to go into the Linux operating system, realize everything that they ever hated about Mac or Windows is a problem with Mac or Windows in the way that those operating systems handle it, and that magically all of their problems go away because they chose to use Linux. No, and I've
never believed that. In fact, I was one of those people who said this challenge was doomed from the beginning. I said that on a live stream, but like a billion years ago.
I am definitely on the Windows Mac side of the spectrum, and you are definitely on the Linux side of the spectrum. So we are Coke and Pepsi, Democrats and Republicans, you know, Linux versus Windows. We are that dynamic. When I hear Linux people talk about Linux, it sounds as if Linux, the sales pitch that I hear coming from the Linux community is use Linux. That thing that you're having a problem with your machine, you don't have to worry about that in Linux. So Linux will just solve your problems.
No.
And that's not true.
No.
And I understand. I mean, Can
I interject for a moment? And I'm not doing that to meme. I know that's a meme. I'm not saying that to spit out a meme. Let me say this. The Linux community is a joke. They haven't done anything legitimately helpful, and they're just a mob of internet people. Unpopular opinion, but that's my belief. The Linux community has never been helpful, and they will never be.
The same is kind of true for the Windows community and the Apple community. It really is.
Apple people have given up because Apple oppresses them so much, and then Windows is. Yeah, we know we're being tormented, but at least I can play my video games.
I would also argue that the Windows, Linux, and Mac communities are not the people that use those products. So you could be an Apple user without being part of the Apple community. The community are only those people that are trying to be helpful within the people that use that operating system. So in other words, the Windows community is anyone online who's trying to help me get my program to run because, hey, yeah, the developers messed up somewhere, and oh yeah, you have to do this one weird patch in order to get your program to run. Someone posting something on Reddit and explaining, okay, here's the walkthrough. Someone doing a GitHub or a like having something on GitHub where they like keep track of all of the ways that bugs have broken something and how to patch them. Those are the community. And so of the people that care, we're comparing the Linux people that care versus the Windows people that care. And I think that of the two communities, a significantly larger percentage of the Linux community care about other people, or care about helping other people run Linux.
They're more helpful because they're an oppressed minority. Like
yeah, but it's a vocal
let
minority.
Me clarify. As an oppressed minority, I would say they're equally as stupid as gamers are. If anyone knows the joke.
But this video, or this series of videos, is really it's really a commentary towards that section of the community, those Linux those Linux people that are trying to be helpful.
They'll always never be helpful.
It's a commentary to those people that where some of them say, hey, yeah, you know, Linus, you really should just run Linux, because this thing that you're complaining about in Windows, it's not a problem on Linux, and you really should just stop complaining about Windows problems.
I don't know who's been telling him that, but whoever told him that is a moron if they know Linus's personality. As someone who knows Linus's personality, I go out with him twice a week to get salad.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Those people are wrong.
Salad.
But knowing George Lucas like I do, we play golf and have salad twice a month.
I think that what this series of videos is it's a commentary to the helpful section of the vocal section of the Linux community. Those people that say, hey, yeah, Linus, you should just run Linux and it'll solve all your problems. So that he can say, look, I have run Linux. I went through the normal Linux experience like anyone else would, because I didn't let anyone else, like I could have. Linus literally has people on staff that could have solved all his problems. Yeah, but they didn't help him. And so he says to those people, look, I had the vanilla experience.
I want to talk about Luke's problems and why most of them are legitimate, because I have dealt with them myself for endless number of years.
Okay, well, continuing on with this specific video, what is it about Luke's problems?
Okay, so let me talk about the first one. And one of them I think is one I don't blame him for, but I also half blame him for, because Windows and Mac users do this and it's not okay. And from what I've heard from people in the wild, like when I say in the wild, I mean like people I know in real life, or from like what I have witnessed and overheard in real life. This is something that he said that something won't, like, say I'll throw something under the bus, like say OBS or powering your XLR microphones or whatever doesn't work, right? Doesn't work. And then but he reboots and it works again, and he's like, huh, that's weird. But he never said this in the video, but this is just me reading between the lines, just a teensy bit. He probably is like many people. Take most of my coworkers and my supervisor, for example. They don't turn off their computers when they're done for the day. They just put them to sleep or close the lid. And I suspect that Luke and many of, like, countless other people fall into this category.
Also, if you are on Mac or Linux, you can figure out how long your computer has been awake by going into a terminal and typing uptime.
Yeah.
One word, no spaces.
Yeah.
Is it the same on Windows?
No, there's a different command. It's a PowerShell command, but
I don't know what it is in PowerShell, but Mac and Linux, uptime.
Yeah, uptime. In any Unix operating system, it's uptime. I
need to reboot my computer because it has been awake for 13 days. Apparently.
That is not acceptable.
And, you know, I would argue I reboot my computer more often than most people do, because I do occasionally just do a random.
But I'm saying, like, computer. Power off your computer at night, because it's good for your electricity bill. It's good for, like, your computer's, like, long-term health and well-being. Like, I
mean, I would argue it's, if you're worried about your computer, like, consuming electricity.
But that's a minor benefit. I'm just saying.
The better argument is no operating system is perfect, and over the course of being awake for a really long time, any errors that the computer is incapable of correcting for, like say a program works in the wrong way and sequesters off a little like cordons off a section of memory somewhere, saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to use that later," and it never gets unearmarked. Well, it's that sort of thing can accrue over the course of time, and eventually can cause more long-term problems with your computer. And you could solve the problem by just restarting your computer occasionally.
Well, you bringing it up is a great segue into another thing that Luke had. How he said he wasn't able to get the Canon EOS tool to run on Linux. But I actually do have an answer to that. Because I was like, is that really a thing? So I looked it up. But there's apparently a tool which allows you to interface with Canon video cameras. It's called G-Photo 2. But the reason why he probably never thought about it, it's command line only. And
so it's not in the repo?
No, it is in Ubuntu's repos, yeah. It's in Fedora's repos too. Yeah, it's in everyone's repos. It's incredibly popular. It's used for mostly DSLR cameras. So you can convert DSLR cameras into video feeds into FFmpeg. And then you can, from FFmpeg, you can basically cast them someplace else. And speaking of webcams and something else, the reason why Linus wasn't able to get virtual webcam working, and again, Ubuntu doesn't make this clear, is actually,
something that Linus does mention, or has mentioned at least in the WAN show, is all of the issues that he mentioned in the video have already been patched. Like if you look at when the timestamp of when this video came out, and then the GitHub page of the program that he mentioned, there was a push to fix the description of the problem that he complained about.
Had some piss poor documentation.
23 hours after the video was published.
Again, piss poor documentation.
Sorry, 23 hours before the video was published. I'm sorry. And it was because of that, because the video was put on Floatplane before it was put on YouTube. And so, but because of that, part of the good that comes from Linus complaining about Linux for 5 episodes or whatever is going to be.
That was 2.
Well, it's 2 so far. I think they're supposed to do 5.
I thought you said they were done.
No, it's.
Why is it 5? That's a bit much, don't you think?
I think it's gonna be. Because they haven't
We can keep milking it for content. Great, I love it.
I mean, they had to torture themselves for a month, so you might as well.
Torture. I don't think it was torture.
And one of the ones that they're considering doing is a reaction video with Anthony, like that which I think would be great.
Come on,
I think would be great.
I don't know these Linus Texas. You expect me to know their names?
Okay, Anthony runs Arch as his main operating system.
So what?
So he's that kind of a person.
I don't know. He could be one of those people who used Endeavor.
He might be, but he's the kind of person who, he is the Linux person.
You don't need to be a big brain to use Arch. I know everyone memes about that, but you really don't.
That Linus making videos and being a major player in, one of the faces in the tech community, one of the big faces of the tech community, gives significant visibility to a lot of the problems with Linux so that those problems can be fixed. So Linux could potentially be a more valid operating system that you really could just say, hey, yeah, why don't you use Linux? Because I personally, I don't see why there couldn't be a version of Linux somewhere, or why Linux couldn't get to a point that you could just run Linux instead of Windows. Because right now, clearly, it matters that you're not running Windows or not running Mac. But that doesn't have to always be the case. Linux really could just be another operating system that has no specific drawbacks because it's Linux.
It will never be. And you want to know why it will never be? Because the Linux community squandered their chance years ago.
I disagree with that.
They squandered their chance in the Windows Vista
Okay,
era.
but
They
dude,
squandered their chance
don't be so
back
short-sighted.
before when Unity was a thing.
But I mean, that's kind of my point. Is Windows IoT stuff is bad compared to Linux IoT stuff.
Which
Linux
everyone
IoT
loves.
stuff is better. So that's one area where Linux is already better.
Linux has
than-
already
than
taken
Windows.
over servers. It's over.
It's already taken over servers. So Windows is kind of fighting a losing battle in some industries. Why not the user industry? Like it could potentially. It's a real possibility. But developers have to be on board with Linux. And I think that Linus making videos about Linux is bringing visibility to that fact. And I think at minimum, what it does is it's going to force Windows to have to do some stuff to work harder to, to
the
make that
only
not
thing
happen.
Windows has to do to keep the stupid gamers pacified, right?
Game Pass.
Exactly. I didn't even have to say it.
Game Pass.
Proves my point. Everyone I know is like, oh, don't you want to get Game Pass? I'm like, no, I don't want to pay $15 a month. It's ridiculous.
I mean, to
Could
be
spend
fair,
my paycheck on McDonald's rather. I'd rather spend my paycheck on McDonald's than spend it on Xbox.
but Game Pass.
I don't care. I don't.
What else did you think
Pulse
about?
Audio sucks. You got that right. I'm so sick of it. I got rid of it already.
Yeah, you said that you kind of regret that they did this video before the
2022-04.
What's the revision of Pulseaudio?
Pipewire. The
Pipewire.
future of Pulseaudio.
So a lot of the issues that Linus had, or Linus and Luke had,
Well, both of them.
had with Pulseaudio could have just been fixed with Pipewire.
Yes. Because
Pipewire is the
just
savior
works.
that will come
It's
to
like the same
save us
thing,
all.
but it just works. That's what's so sad about it.
Yeah, I mean, think about the developers that developed Pipewire. They're like, so what if we just made like Pulseaudio, but like just made it work? Yeah,
It's really bad when you put it that way, but it's
I mean,
legitimately true.
I
So
guess
here,
the same is also kind of true with Wayland, because Wayland is like, well, what if we had Xorg, except we made it just
but
work.
I think the difference with Wayland though is Wayland is something people legitimately want to succeed because Xorg hasn't received an update since the 80s.
Really?
Really.
I mean,
It's
by
so
the same
old. Nobody knows the code, the source. Nobody knows how to read the source code anymore.
I mean, to be fair, that's also kind of impressive. Like that they wrote their
They
program
wrote something
so well.
free and open source and so well that nobody knows how to read it.
So like how does it compile?
They just have the original source code and they just keep the libraries. Yeah, that's it.
I mean,
Xorg has their own libraries.
Like that's actually impressive that that it hasn't had any update since the 80s and it just runs correctly, like still now.
Gotta applaud those maintainers. Can we get a like in chat for the Xorg developers?
So like when was the last time it had I mean, so they still are patching it, right?
They're still patching it, but they haven't received features since the 80s.
Yeah, how many features do you need for like?
Honestly, not a lot.
I mean, like
That's why
to
I
be fair,
don't
like,
understand
kernel-
like some of the hate for Wayland, and I can certainly sympathize with it not being complete. But at the same time, it's one of those why I separate Wayland from Pulseaudio is people legitimately want Wayland to succeed. Whereas with Pulseaudio, everyone had a love-hate relationship with it. Whereas, take this. This is a blog post from Christian Schaller. He's a Red Hat employee, also one of the lead GNOME developers. Fedora's developers will occasionally do blog posts about stuff they're developing, and they're talking about here, they're developing a Pipewire for Fedora. They made it the default in Fedora 34, which is the latest version. Then the previous version of Fedora, the current one's 35. But it's going to become, Pipewire is now going to become the default in all Linux distros. So it's become, like, it's now in Arch Linux. In Ubuntu, they're making it the default in 2204. So if they just waited till April, they would have gotten it. There's even now a new, there's also now Wire Plumber, which is in Fedora 35, which is a new session manager to manage different audio sources individually. And that's huge because there has never been a way to individually manage audio in Linux. Like you can on Mac, like you can on, well, Macs can't do it, but you can on, like you can on Windows.
I mean, Macs can, but it's not natively.
Yeah. But you definitely can on Windows, and Apple doesn't even do it at all. They just assume someone will do it for them. But if they had just waited, if they just wait, could they have installed Pipewire? Probably not. I mean, Linus could have. I don't think Luke could have. Because you have to, yeah.
On Mint?
Mint you cannot, because it is not in the repos yet. That's why I said they have to wait till Mint, you have to wait till, in Pop! OS, you have to wait till 2204. Because, which is next April 2022, because that's when they patch it in. So, any final words on Mr. Linus Media Group?
I'm interested to see where it, what
I lost hope in the first video. I'm continually I'm just given up.
I'm interested to see how developers will respond to Linus making a video of things, because we've already seen that some things have started to be, like, the stuff that he complained about has gotten patched. Like, what maybe there is a chance, given that Linus is a large enough figure, that the more general issue with what he is complaining about could be addressed, which should be interesting to see. So I'm hopeful.
I'm not really hopeful at all, because YouTubers have not made a major difference in anything.
I don't know.
We'll see. Only time will tell. What do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. Tell us how much you love Linus. Tell us how much you love to visit and buy merch at lttstore.com.
Also, don't forget to dislike this video.
Don't forget to dislike the video where no one can see it, because YouTube. I think that's all we have for today for our scheduled programming.